get to it. And they've been doing a lot of Rocky Canyon to open up with. And whoa, Fade. No, I saw that. No sheep abuse. Jesus. This is how we start. I just get into the car, so you're instantly beating the crap out of a helpless sheep. I mean, I guess it's different when you club them over the head. At least that way it's kind of quick. You guys ever think about that? How merciful villagers are when they kill sheep, but how violent scouts are? Also kind of puts in perspective how weak-ass scouts are, right? Like, these guys must have brittle bones or something. 1 damage compared to 6 or 10 when they're set to... Why are they... Didn't they fix this? Did they actually... Wait. Did they never fix this? You guys know about this, right? So there was a bug that was allowing people to attack in melee attack anything with their torch damage, which is absolutely broken. Ridiculously broken. Like, you could do 10 damage up against a knight. So you could basically attack a knight. You could kill a knight. Like, if you pinched a knight, you kill him. I remember watching players do this. But it was to do with the fact that you could shift... I think it was like you could shift Q to club a sheep and then click on your opponent, and then they would just keep the damage. Hopefully that's been fixed, though. I'm fingers crossed that doesn't happen anymore. It was absolutely stupid that was even a thing. Anyway, let's focus on the game, because we've got Chinese versus Delhi. An interesting matchup on Rocky Canyon with these kind of central-focused sacred sites. Especially when you consider that both civs have desirability around the center as the game goes on, right? The Delhi very early on to try and get those early positionings for the sacred site control, and the Chinese are probably eyeballing all these stone outcroppings. In fact, the Delhi will be as well, because folks, like, they can do it now. We can see the real Delhi build. Okay, scrap that. We're not seeing the real Delhi build. So I was going to say, we can see the Castley's Rush Delhi build now, considering that Compound of Defender is now allowed. Remember, we are in round 2 of Golden League 2, which means no longer are castles, stone walls, and stone towers banned. It's actually just that you start with 12 villages instead of 6. That's simply what the rule is. So expect to see a lot of Delhi players probably going Dome of Faith into Compound of Defender for quick unlocks of the village fortresses. But for now, Snooper decides he needs to play aggro. Understandable, right? You're up against the Chinese. You feel like you should be able to have map control naturally. I do think you could just go for the Dome of Faith, though. I don't know if this is kind of more instinctual. I'd love to know what Snooper's thought process was, but I would say Dome of Faith, 80% of games feels better. I feel like there's games where you're forced to build Tower of Victory, namely those against another Delhi player or those against the Ottomans. Outside of that, most games it feels like Dome of Faith is going to just be better for you. Quicker tech unlock timings, cheaper scholars, which saves more gold for the tech up. It's just, if you want to go for any sort of optimal castle age build, then it's always going to be the Dome of Faith. If you're going to play prolonged feudal, then I understand Tower of Victory. And the reason is that by going for a TOV, it used to be the argument is like, well, if you want to play prolonged feudal, TOV or Dome of Faith is good because of combat healing. But we have to remember, the combat healing got heavily nerfed. So that element of Delhi play has pitted off quite heavily. Delhi. Something they do still love to do, something they find delightful, is to go for the double mosque, which is what Snooper's done here. It's another reason why the Dome of Faith feels good, by the way. Ever since they made it function as a mosque, you're allowed to now save yourself a slot, right? In that you can Dome of Faith, then you can queue on itself to garrison the scrolls it builds, and then you can have this other mosque to the side that's just constantly researching all these techs. Meanwhile, when you go TOV, you kind of feel like you have to do this build where you go for a second mosque. Otherwise, just one scholar is going to leave you with very heavily delayed tech timings. Especially if you want to do something like this, the double blacksmith play, in fact. I quite like this build. So what Snooper's doing here is kind of like, it's an evolution of what we've seen in the past. Like, a lot of people love the double blacksmith build, but I feel like we'd often see it off of the old Dome of Faith with one mosque. If you want to make it work with this functionality, like, you need to go for the double mosque play. Now, the cool thing is he's not only going to have the 15% attack speed increase, rather. He's going to have the damage advantage and the damage mitigation advantage with his techs. It should be something that Faye's not ready for. Faye, who has gone full Song Dynasty, will have access to ZHUGE Nu, and that's where this becomes a pretty clutch play by Snooper. He's anticipating ZHUGE Nu. It's like the #1 play for a Chinese player playing prolonged feudal, as it's just so advantageous how this unit functions, right? Remember, it does a burst attack of 3, and each shot can only be reduced to 1 damage. Well, that's Snooper's goal, is to get the damage as close to 0 as possible, well, close to 1 as possible, because you can't get to 0. And by going for this type of opening, he'll get under mesh plus the steeled arrows, and he'll have the attack speed advantage on his own archers that should allow him to kind of eke out an edge in these fights. Especially when you consider that these ZHUGE Nu, they are a little crippled on their range. 4.5 tile range, and also slow movement speed than archers, means that if Snooper utilizes a line formation and plays long, he can never be hit by Faye. We will see Horsemen open up with. It's just a kind of standardized play. Like, you always go Horsemen first. It allows you to deny scouting vision. It allows you to kind of manipulate the fights and choose where you fight. And then the Archer follow-up should always be the second part of the follow. It does feel weird, though, right? Like, I think a lot of people kind of looked at this and like, why are you building TOV just to build stables? It's just because any prolonged feudal civ is always going to want a Horseman. It's like the #1 unit. I always feel like Spearman is the lowest on the rung. And you typically only build Spearmen because you're forced to, not because you want to. So people asking questions like, how do the Delhi compare to the English Men-at-Arms? So the English Men-at-Arms get an extra 2 armor. Home Blades, if I recall correctly, is 3 extra damage. So the thing you have to keep in mind, like, I'm just double checking, I'm pretty sure it's 3. Yes, it's 3. It used to be 4, if I recall correctly. The English Men-at-Arms will be better. Because the 15%, like, so it depends on whether you're defending, actually. Sorry, I should have, like, most cases the English player is going to be defending, though, right? So Home Blades plus the attack speed buffer, you'd think it would be better, but most of your damage advantage is being mitigated. But then an English player on the defensive will probably have a network of citadels at that point, which makes it better. If we're talking network of castles versus TOV with Home Blades, Delhi is better. The other thing that makes Delhi really cool that's underutilized, by the way, is Force March that can make you so much better than English Men-at-Arms. But as the game goes later, the English MAA feel much more formidable compared to the Delhi choice. Especially when you consider the English playstyle, right? Slow move up, build outposts, build castles, always consistently have that attack speed aura. This is a lot of ZHUGE Nu from Faye. She saw Horsemen already, but she hasn't countered it at all. And this is the annoying part we talk about the Spearmen unless you're really forced to, right? Like, she needs Spearmen, but she's not going to build them because she sees Archers as well. She's up against a TOV build. I think Faye has gone a little bit too one-dimensional here. Like, Horsemen would have made the most sense for her. Just look at how little damage she does against the Horsemen. All right, this is going to be a wipe of her army. The Archers are even in the mixer as well. This is so expensive for her. It takes so long to kill just 1 Horseman. And remember, folks, these are slower than Archers. Usually Archers would lose to this, but these units run away much slower. That's probably the best moment for Faye there. Tanking with the Scout did offset some of the losses, but there's no denying it. Snooper caught her completely off guard with this. ZHUGE Nu, remember, as soon as you start retreating, the start step doesn't work anymore because the Archers have range advantage. So Snooper, with the pushback, now gets Sacred Site access. Faye, this was no small price to pay in this fight. Look at the destroyed value, 400 extra destroyed by Snooper. Faye, like, don't think, she can just go Castle Age, she can just go 1-up. That's not going to happen here. You've built 6 archery ranges. You have to win at this phase now. If you try to go for Castle Age, you're doing so at a disadvantage because your only option there is to maybe update the ZHUGE Nu, sure. But other than that, it's crossbows, right? Like, you haven't prepped yourself for Lancers, you haven't prepped yourself for Men-at-Arms. This is just a bad position for Faye to find herself in. The problem is because now you see that the Snooper is building this many units, you feel inclined to do so too. But now, you have this awkward situation where replacing these units is not cheap, right? 80 resources per. Sure, they produce fast, but 80 resources compared to on the other side, the same price. But the healing factor means that if you don't actually go in and beat Snooper convincingly, then any damage you've done is offset. And it's just a bigger edge for the Delhi player. It's always been the infuriation with this civ. Some people highlighting she's struggling to keep production going. You are correct. Like, I'm watching this. It's like maybe 4 of them are working, and now Rax as well. I mean, it's interesting because I wonder what encouraged Faye to think she had this much push in terms of resource potential. I'm not sure she ever did, right? So like, so think about the maths on this. 80 resources every 15 seconds. So each minute you're spending 320 resources, times that by 6. Wow. So you need over 1,800 resources. Look at her combined resource count. She actually doesn't have that much in her combined. Man, that's tough. And this is, by the way, why ZHUGE Nu mass can be absurd. If you can reach the critical mass, he can kill buildings. They're slowly getting access, but just look at what Snooper's done. He pivots away and he goes for another sacred site. And not only that, Faye has exposed eco out here. If that gets discovered, she can't scale the ZHUGE Nu anymore. As it stands, she's only keeping neck and neck, but check the Horseman count again. Faye's finally adding in spears, but this is what was missing. If she had that in the last fight, I think this is her game. Instead, the Horseman once again in the breach, once again a pain in the ass. Now, the ZHUGE Nu do hit a little bit harder this time. She has got the Blacksmith upgrades run. The Archers aren't going to party. The Horsemen, when they commit like this, should be somewhat of a threat, but Snooper realizes this mass is a bit too big. We'll back away, but now he'll head up. Compound of the Defender is on the way, and Faye is about to be an insurmountable disadvantage here. And the worst possible thing is happening. She's double downing. Siege Engineering on the way, more ZHUGE Nu being produced. The problem with this is she doesn't have a quick way into the base, and Snooper can just evade. If he just waits for this tech up and gets under mesh, gets the level 2 wedge rivets, she does no damage, right? Her 5 damage is going to be reduced pretty heavily. Against these Horsemen, she's going to be tickling. All 3 sacred sites locked. Only now starting to be decapped. Faye just feels like she's one step behind. Snooper now completes the tech up. We're a minute away from upgrades. If Faye can't do significant damage, she is out. Some exposed eco. She catches Snooper not reacting. Could be the play. We'll snipe a few. We'll snipe all. Snooper not reacting at all. Went a bit goldfish on it. He's keeping sacred site control. Still getting gold elsewhere. Remember, that military edge is on its way. 45 seconds out. And Faye, I don't know if she's going to breach fast enough here. I mean, she needs Siege Engineering pumped right now. She needs to get 3 rams immediately. It's the only way this works. Because the stables are pushing lancers as we speak. Stables that could be garrisoned to double the push-out speed. Snooper shown great patience here. Sacrifices the arm to save the body. Scholars are trying to pick up relics in the meantime. Keep that gold churning in. Faye now up to 66 ZHUGE Nu. A force that should feel unstoppable. It needs more Vavavoom. It needs the room into the base quicker than this. This Horseman now up to 4 ranged armor. The worst possible outcome. Faye, I think she realizes that the only thing that can save her are the Spearmen. But so few of them are here. And Snooper baits them out. Notice he keeps sniping them down. Because the moment they're gone, Faye's main army won't last much longer. Spears forced to commit. Lancers will slowly be shred, but notice the archers just move in. The veteran archers just hit so damn hard now. And Faye, winning this fight is not good enough. She has to take something afterwards. She just doesn't have an ability to. All I see is a ZHUGE Nu army that is half dead already. An archer mass that was barely touched. Cavalry that was sacrificed, sure. But someone like that is someone that Snooper can afford. It's crazy to think how potentially different this could have came out if Faye had maybe had spears in the first engagement, or even had proxy archery ranges to keep this push going, or proxy Raxes even. But now, it looks truly chalked. Remember, Snooper, he's not even playing this fully optimally. He could play the edge of the fights and never be touched on these archers. Just look at that destroyed value, though. Oh, my God. That pains me. The ZHUGE Nu never got to be full force is the sad reality here. It's kind of crazy. Like, if maybe if she had 70 ZHUGE Nu, like it was at the count, in that fight, this game could look different. Even then, it feels like the best case situation for you is maybe a stalemate. But we're long past that now. I mean, relics are now starting to be hoovered up. Berries are being accessed on the flanks. This is Snooper's game to win. I think looking back at this, Faye probably realizes she got a little bit too excited on the archery range count. I like the idea, but I think maybe it came a bit too fast. And neglecting the Spearman or Horseman cost her dearly. I think Horseman would have been brilliant for a comp, especially when she's up against mass archers like this. You know, worst case scenario, you body your opponent's Horseman. Best case scenario, you get in the back and kill his archers. Just feels like that was the detail missing here. And I am very glad to say that no brain, one clicking, one unit type is not going to win you games, folks. Not to say Faye didn't have a brain here, but you know what I'm talking about. No one wants to see a meta where you can just build one unit and win, all right? We had enough of those days with the horse archers. The brilliant part is Snooper just continues to push archers, by the way. I mean, your opponent is in Feudal. What else do you need here, right? We should also start seeing castles soon. Yeah, we've already got one down here. Remember, Combat of the Defenders allows you to research these things, so Village Fortresses is on the way. What's slow by the looks of it? I think you should have been further through than this. So maybe a little bit delayed on the click. So we're like 2.5 minutes away from the eco advantage, escalating for Snooper. Man, this is the thing I'm now worried about. You're starting to see the poke on the flanks. Like, this will get more and more painful for Faye. She's playing pocket ecos without an adequate defense force. She hasn't got walls up. She's just fully exposed. And this, once again, goes back to my point on Horsemen, right? Like, this game still looks dire for her in this circumstance where the Delia, Castle, and you're in Feudal. But if you imagine her having Horsemen instead of Spears, she could go and flank attack. She could go and raid these pocket ecos that Snooper also has. She never had that option. It's kind of weird. Like, Spearmen, I think, bait people a lot more at the moment because Spearmen are kind of broken. Right? I know I'm saying, like my logic is Horsemen S tier in Feudal. Beyond that, Spearmen kind of feel better. And the reason is that Spearmen move weirdly fast at the moment due to the changes to their charge. Because now it triggers when you're close to your opponent, but it lasts like double the length it used to. So it allows you to gap close pretty effectively compared to where you used to be. Problem here is, like, you know, I'm talking about Castle Age that's being very good. You're stuck in Feudal. This feels like you're not able to do anything with this unit. Even more so when you're building them up against archers. You know, the funny part is, like, if you only saw this, if you only saw what FaZe sees, you probably get this false sense of security. Like, there's still an opportunity. We're trading evenly. But FaZe, no Muppet. She understands perfectly well what's happening behind this. This is just escalating in the background. Stuff is happening elsewhere. Snooper's getting a bigger edge elsewhere. And these fights that were once even or slightly a disadvantage are now just untenable. I mean, we're seeing a Feudal Age 1 TC build Chinese player forced to build granaries into farms. I actually don't remember the last time I saw that. It feels like it was a while ago. At 19 minutes in to be in this type of position. 19 minutes is good enough for her to give up, though. Faye is going to call it. Interesting idea with the mass ZHUGE Nu, one that has been the bane of many players' existence, but felt like it was lacking that second element that could really give the 1-2 punch to win this.